Welcome to the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment's Request for Analytical Services 270-271 form. For short, we'll call this form the 270. You use the 270 when submitting any human specimen for testing to the CDPHE laboratory, such as stool or blood. I'm going to focus on how to fill out the form during a foodborne or enteric disease outbreak. During an outbreak, you'll complete one form for each specimen being sent. So if you collect bulk stool and an AMES swab from one ill person, you'll complete 2 lab slips. The collection number in the top right corner will be added by laboratory staff when the specimen is received at the CDPHE lab. The first section you'll fill out is the customer information section. This section identifies the person or agency requesting testing. The customer ID is unique to each agency and pre-populated on the form for your agency. If you use another health department's lab form, test results will be sent to them because it is their customer ID. If you do not have an account set up with the CDPHE lab or need new forms, please call 303-692-3086. When you get the form from the lab, please ensure that your agency name and contact information are correct. You can make copies of the form for future use. Under the address, you'll want to put the contact name, phone number, email, and fax of the person you want to answer questions about this specimen and receive the results. This may be the person leading the outbreak investigation or the environmental health specialist who collected the specimen from the ill person. The doctor's name and phone number can be left blank if a doctor did not order this test. Specimens being tested as part of a public health investigation do not require a doctor's order. The patient information section tells the lab who the specimen belongs to. Patient ID could be a CDERS number, a medical records number, a unique ID number that you assigned, or left blank. Fill out the patient's last and first names, address, phone number, date of birth, and gender. If you do not have all of this information, at minimum, please complete name and phone number. In the Comments and History section, select the race and ethnicity of the ill person whose specimen is being submitted. If you are unsure, leave these parts blank. You can skip the rest of this section. This form is used for any human specimen submitted, and these parts do not apply to foodborne or enteric illness outbreaks. With pre-approval from CDPHE EPI staff, the CDPHE lab will cover charges for enteric disease testing during most outbreaks. By writing the outbreak number on this part of the form, the lab knows to charge CDPHE EPI, not the health department that submitted the specimens. If you do not include the outbreak number, your agency will be charged for testing. For more information about when you should submit specimens, please consult the Guidelines for Stool Testing at CDPHE memo. The link to that document is at the bottom of this page. If you know onset date for the ill person whose specimen is being submitted, write it here. It's okay if you need to leave this blank. Skip the criminal case information section. The specimen information section is where you provide information about the actual specimen being submitted. Write down the month, day, and year the specimen was collected. If you know the time, you can write the hour and minute. For collected by, for a bulk stool, you would write patient. For an AMES swab, you would write patient if the patient did the swab. If someone at your health department did the swab from bulk stool, write the name of your agency. For the collection type, you'll select swab if it's an AMES. For bulk stool, select Other and write bulk stool. For the specimen source, most often you will be sending stool. The molecular science portion of the form is where you specify what testing you would like done on the specimen. Since this form is for all human specimens received at the lab, many of these options are not applicable to stool testing. In the Test Methods section, you will likely select culture for most enteric illness outbreaks if you want to test for any enteric bacterial pathogen. If you suspect norovirus, also check PCR, as norovirus testing is done by PCR. There is not a box to check if you are requesting bacterial toxin testing, so you can just check culture and that will get the specimen to the right part of the lab. Below the line is where you check off the specific pathogens you want the stool tested for. For a bacterial culture, you would select Campylobacter, E. coli, Salmonella, and Shigella. For norovirus, you would just check norovirus. There is no box for bacterial toxins, so check Other and handwrite foodborne toxins. It's rare that you would use the serology portion of the molecular science section for a foodborne illness. If you need testing for hepatitis A, consult with the CDPHE EPI section before submitting specimens. The chain of custody section will track the specimen on its journey from your agency to the CDPHE lab. You should sign and date the first relinquished by line when the specimen leaves your care. This may be when the courier picks it up from your agency or when you drop it at the CDPHE lab yourself. The temperature will be recorded when the specimen is received by the CDPHE lab. As a reminder, you'll need to complete one form for each specimen. If you have multiple specimens for one outbreak, it may be fastest to complete the customer, outbreak, specimen, and testing sections, and then print off copies of the forms. You can then complete the patient information by hand for each specimen. Remember that each specimen container, bulk stool container, or Amy's swab must also contain the ill person's name, date of birth, and collection date. Be sure to pack specimens carefully. Any leaking or damaged specimens cannot be tested by the lab. If you have additional questions about completing this form or to request testing during an outbreak, please call the CDPHE EPI section at 303-692-2700.